Hey,
Hey,
everybody,
hey, 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 hey.
back back for another. Buckle your seatbelts and get ready to just dive in again. Right,
Get
coming back with another banger over here.
get ready
Um,
to rumble with yourself, with your inner demons.
actually, that's literally what we're about to go into. So, yeah, this is important because I know a lot of us are on the path. Well, literally anyone listening to this, there is some desire that you have to be more successful and everything. We're just here to help you look at the bigger picture of if you're going for some success, why not just go all the way? Because some success is actually like bullshit. There's still going to be consequence. We're here to help you go all the way to your highest potential. Because then at that point, when you do what's best for yourself and for everyone, or what you could call enlightened self-interest, then you realize that, hey, that's actually the best outcome and there's going to be no consequence to that. So how do you do that? That's what we'll chat about today.
Yeah, and it's really to realize, guys, that I know sometimes maybe we're not actually consciously thinking this, but the way we behave, the way we act sometimes is as if success is just like, yeah, basically just kind of keeping what I'm doing and kind of like, oh, I got a little bit of this too, a little bit of that. That should make me rich. It's like if it were up to the average dude's mind, it would be them standing in the corner of the street and somebody comes up to them and gives them a briefcase full of fucking millions of dollars. And then some beautiful woman comes up to him and is like, oh, I want to like blow you. And that's like how a guy's mind works. They just want to have everything handed to them. In
Yes.
reality, the eye of the needle is so small in terms of your ability to thread through and actually become the status that you want to become. It's so narrow, it's ridiculous. So that's why what we're suggesting is to take this very seriously, to not just listen. That's one thing, but we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you just listen and you don't apply. What we're suggesting is don't just listen, make sure you apply this stuff and look at how this applies to your life. Because the number one thing that we're going to get to is what apathy is and how that is destroying every part of your life, your relationships, your business, your friendships, everything. But before we get there, Mitch, just break into what pre-programming is and how that's what makes the difference between where we end up in life.
Yeah, 100%. Like everyone just think for a moment, um, Bill Gates, right? Or Bill Gates's child. Do they have to worry about where their money's coming from? Like that thought doesn't cross their mind ever. That's the difference between you and someone who is pre-programmed to be actually, successful or a billionaire, let's say. Because if you have the pre-programming and you were raised from a young age to be able to handle things like responsibility, you were taught how the world works, how various systems in the world work, how different institutions work. Like the elite and the people that are currently billionaires, the ones that are running the world, they were programmed differently as a child. And so part of this process is for us to first get freaking honest about that. Like, if you're over here thinking, oh, I can just will myself into being a billionaire and I'll just think really great thoughts, like I'm so glad you said that earlier of how the average guy's brain goes to like, oh, what I think success is going to be is like literally, yeah, you're like winning some freaking lottery ticket. Like, I was talking to some guy the other
Right.
week and he was just like telling me, he's like, yeah, man, I've been through all the gym training. I'm using the gym training. I'm thinking about it. I'm reading the books and everything. But like, why isn't it working yet? Like I'm a month or two in and I thought it'd be working. Like, why isn't it working? He was almost like trying to blame me. I'm like, I'm like, okay, hold on. So you're trying to think about this stuff, but are you actually taking real action in real reality? Like, do you have a business? He's like, and he went back to blame. I'm like, okay, stop. You don't know fucking step one. How do you make money? Like in his mind, it was literally like he was hoping to get a lottery ticket or someone to
Uh-huh.
just come up to him and say, hey, here's some business opportunity, thinking that the universe works like magic. It's not magic. You have to do real physical activity. And so my point is, if you were programmed to actually be a billionaire, you'd already be well on your way or you'd already have it. So anyone listening to this audio, it's actually a good thing. If you were also programmed like Bill Gates' son or whatever, Elon Musk's son and daughter and his other, 5 kids, uh, you wouldn't have the ability to relate to the average person on Earth. Where thankfully, because Asif and I, our upbringing was, relatively middle class. I mean, I know we both had bit different upbringings. You had immigrant parents, I didn't, but we weren't raised to be freaking rich. Like we were raised to be consumer slaves, go through the system, get a good job, and just be part of the machine. And so here's the point: is that's our programming. And much like a computer that's programmed to do a certain task, that's all it's going to do. So what we're here to say, and what the Young Billionaires Club is about, is you got to be honest about that. And then we have to take steps to actually change that. And along the way, you're going to have something called apathy come in, which is where you're having resistance and emotions towards not doing the thing that's going to get you to the success. And that's what we really have to look at, because you're going to have to fight your pre-program. You're going to have to change
it. That comes up as, it's going to come up as something that happened to you. It's going to as a multitude of things, but if I could summarize it, thoughts will come up as emotions inside of you, or everybody knows. And if you haven't yet, you should define this for yourself. It is your baseline. Okay, your baseline. If you're listening to this, say the word baseline. Your baseline is the measurement, and in this context, it's your internal state. That is when you are at rest, when there is no external state, you're just chilling, in other words. This is your baseline, okay? And the thing you want to pay attention to is, one, in order to do this, you have to define your baseline. Say, how do you feel? You can always, even if you're feeling nothing, you can describe how nothing feels. You're like, okay, I'm at rest, my shoulders are chill, I can breathe easy, I'm not thinking too much, whatever the case may be, okay? When you're experiencing energy or you're having thoughts, the easiest way to summarize your inner experience is that you are off your baseline, okay? If you're listening to this, say off my baseline, okay? The reason it's valuable to say that is because it will support you in registering this information inside of you. For those of you who haven't done this yet, put that into your tech note, okay? Put in baseline and put in off my baseline. Off my baseline equals anxious. Off my baseline equals apathy. And what you're doing is you are programming yourself to start spotting.
Oh, hang on a second.
Like normally you're just,
hold up. Yeah, it just cut out a little bit. I think your service might be
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. It's good. It's good, but yeah, it's a little bit glitchy. I don't know if you have a better place you can stand or sit and take this.
Gotcha. Me and my wife are on a road trip. Me and Mitch are really intent on putting this content out to you guys.
Heck yeah, man.
Is it okay right now?
Yeah, it's good. Keep going.
Cool. So just to be clear, you're looking for when you're off your baseline. Okay, so you have to define your baseline and be to identify when you're off your baseline, and that's when you're having thoughts. That's when you're having emotions. When you know what you need to do, but you maybe put it into your schedule, or maybe you didn't put it into your schedule, which is the first mistake. But there's something keeping you back from that. There's some kind of feeling having that's just making you feel like, I don't want to do it. And you're having reasons that are coming through your mind. Here's something to consider. Okay, billionaires don't make excuses. And another word for excuses are reasons. Billionaires do not make excuses. In other words, they don't come up with reasons for why they didn't do the thing that they said they were going to do, or that they knew they were supposed to do. They get it done, period. There's no reason. I don't care if your car gets freaking crashed into. You leave your car there, you take the Uber, you get to where you need to go. That's the kind of resolve that billionaires have. Are we programmed that way? No, but the point to start considering is, where am I giving into my reasons, my thoughts, my feelings as to why I don't do something? Okay, Mitch, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because even along the way, right? Many of you listening to this have already now had some pretty good success. I know that many of you listening to this are already at the point where you could say, hey, I have financial freedom. That is a very dangerous place to be. And here's why, is because if you haven't corrected your inner programming, you could be programmed to get to the point of financial freedom, but you're never going to rise up and actually change anything. And so every single person in the world, whether you're from the richest of the rich family or the poorest of the poor family, we're all going to have to go through this process if we actually want to get to the highest level and then use that position to actually affect real change in the world. Because there's a system right now in the world that we go up against every single day. And that system is actually inside yourself. And it's your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your ego. It's all within you. And so now, instead of looking at it as, oh, I gotta battle it, I gotta fight it. No, that's one way you could look at it if you wanted to. But rather, it's how aware can you be in the moment? And then what do you do when that comes up? And we'll share a couple things that you can do about that. But the first is, you got to remember your principles. You got to remember the principles that you stand for and that you stand as. And that will help, because then it's like autopilot. You go back to that, especially for those of you who have technical, because then you can program it in. So it's automatic. It's unconsciously competent. If you don't have technical, I suggest look at that, because you're not going to be able to get full control of your mind if you don't have it. So you have the principles. And now here's another critical piece, is you have something called your breath. And I know many of you are going to jump immediately to think all sorts of things that are not accurate. I'll just explain it very plainly. Your breath is how you can ground yourself back into physical reality. So you have the apathy come up, or you have the aversion or the excuse or whatever. You say, wait, breathe. Okay, I'm here. Okay, what is best for me to do right now? And then you do it. And it's like a muscle, because you do this again and again and again and again and again. And over time, it becomes one of the most amazing phenomena of your entire life. I've seen this for myself. I'm curious your take on this, Asif, in a second. Is when you can go from feeling apathy or aversion or resistance or an excuse or whatever, you can catch it in the moment and you can breathe. You can let it go. Forgive yourself in real time, at a quantum moment, forgive it. And then you can commit yourself and correct your behavior to the best outcome. When you can do that, you become like, I want to say superhuman, but it's really not, because that should really just be normal. But
Right.
that ability is profound. So what's your take on that?
And that's why, like, I love that you said that. It's like you become superhuman. You become superhuman relative to the average individual. But the average individual is not the human potential normal.
Yeah.
It's just, when we say normal, we mean the average person. We're here to redefine what is normal. That's what we mean. We're talking about the new normal. That's why we're creating the new 1%, right? What the new 1% knows how to do is direct themselves. And that is a concept, and it's called, it's not really a concept, it's who you are. It's the self-directive principle. It's using your self-directive will. Everybody has a similar experience to this, okay? You're particularly emotional, or you're having all these thoughts, but there's some point within you, there's some degree, whether it's 0.1% of you, 5% of you, 10% of your awareness, that knows that if you really wanted to, you can pull yourself out of whatever bullshit you're participating in. Whether maybe you're going through a sadness and you're feeling depressed, and then you notice you're going to put on the music that amplifies the sadness. And there's a point within you that knows that you're living your life like it's a fucking movie and you're some kind of movie character, but you're aware. And you know, there's some part of you that knows that you're playing into this energy inside of you, this emotion inside of you of, oh, I'm sad and I just went through this and whatever. But in reality, there's the part of you that's aware of that is called your self-directive principle. At the end of the day, you can blame all you want, but in reality, you are the one who is choosing to go into the apathy. You are the one that is choosing to go into the apathy, into the emotion, into the sadness, into the anger. Because I know that most people also have the experience of, they set out to go to the gym. They set out to, maybe it was to go out for the night or whatever it is, okay? And then at some point, they don't feel like going. You know what I'm talking about? It's like you plan something and—
Yeah, of course.
Right? It's like you plan something and you're kind of like, when the time is coming and, you know, you got to leave 30 minutes in advance because you got to drive somewhere, whatever the case may be. And you start feeling that resistance because maybe it's a networking event and you're like, fuck, well, we're going to talk about what creates some of the things that create apathy. Maybe it's a sales presentation. Maybe you're going on a date. Maybe you're going to the club, right? Some of you still go to the club. And then you start feeling that resistance, that apathy. Yeah, again, I'm not suggesting you should be going to the club, but I am suggesting that if you set out to do something, you should follow through on it. But what you'll face is this resistance. And everybody has had the experience that where they feel that resistance and then they say, fuck it, no, I gotta go. I know, fuck it, I gotta go. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta go. And you overcome that apathy, you overcome that resistance, and you follow through and you show up, right? That little point within you, that's your self-directed will. Regardless of what you were feeling, you are able to overcome it. You're not actually at effect to your feelings. In fact, if you followed your feelings, well, that would fucking suck. You would screw your life up, right? And in fact, everywhere where you are screwing up your life, it's because you're following your feelings. It's because you're following the thoughts that are coming through your head. So that little point, that's a reference point for all of you on this call who can hear this right now. That's a reference point that you can always refer back to. That is proof. That is real, true proof that you've already done. It's not just somebody explaining to you. You've already done this before, where you've exercised your self-directed will. Now you have to start applying that everywhere in your life. Okay?
Yeah, and here's another key point is, look at your life right now. Just zoom out, right? Pretend you're looking down at yourself, and you could see like two pathways forward. And one pathway forward is where you just give in to your emotions, and you just, you kind of just go with the flow, whatever feels right, feels good, feels like comfortable, feels whatever. And that's one way forward. And then the other pathway is a pathway where you, moment by moment, direct yourself. And that accumulates over time. And maybe you don't always feel super bliss, but you keep doing that. Two questions now. One is, where do each of those versions of you end up a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? Right? I think you have a pretty good sense of which one you'd rather have. But here's even the more fascinating point. Well, equally as fascinating, is if you did hypothetically care about how you felt, right? Because we are humans, it feels good to feel good, it feels bad to feel bad. Which one's going to feel better anyway? The one where you're being a little bitch and deep down you're being a little bitch and you're just going through the motions and you just care about yourself and your feelings and all that shit? Or the one where you've learned, oh my God, I can actually direct myself. I can actually take these steps every day. I can take a deep breath, get the shit done I have to get done. And it's like you ever had a good day of work, like physical labor, something like that, where you're like, wow, you actually feel proud of yourself of like what you did? Or if you've ever followed through on something, even though it wasn't easy and you completed it, it's like, that feels really good. And imagine that now, a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, right? But that moment of choosing which path you're going down is in every single moment. And
And
right now we're at
that,
that crossroads.
yeah, that's like the next level of gratitude. It's like there's one thing to be grateful for, you know, the life that is around you, and the fact that you're still alive and breathing and here. There's another level of gratitude for yourself, for the decisions that you made a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that put you in a position to enjoy life to a new degree. Now, if you don't feel that way about your life, where you're actually somewhere where you're like, fuck, I am fucking proud of myself. Well, this is why we're making this, right? It's to really to get you to start evaluating what does your day-to-day look like? Because success does not happen in a year from now. Success does not happen in 6 months from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Success is a moment-to-moment decision. This is what we mean by self-directed will. Every moment that you give in to your feelings and thoughts and emotions, you are not being successful. It's a mode of being. It's an identity. Every moment that you take that opportunity to, despite how you feel, what you're thinking, to communicate effectively with your partner, even if you're angry, you breathe, you slow down, and you look at, oh, okay, I'm angry because I'm blaming them for something, because anger always comes from blame. And then you choose to communicate effectively. That's success. When you feel too tired to show up and do the damn thing, or you have a deadline or a self-imposed deadline, you're like, I want to get something done by this time or this day, and you don't do it, that's not being successful. That's acting as a failure. But that's not who you are. You can change in a moment. Even if you miss the deadline, you're like, fuck, I missed the deadline. I'm going to go into a downward spiral and I'm going to go with my emotion, with how I'm feeling right now. No, take the opportunity. Even though you broke your commitment, set a new commitment, follow through on it, exercise the self-directive principle. Even though all the self-sabotage comes up and you want to, feel bad for yourself and all this bullshit, choosing in that moment to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to sit down right now and get it done. That's being successful.
And that's actually what integrity is too. Much like you said, that's really living gratitude. This one took me a minute to understand, but I can see it very clearly now. There's a phrase I would suggest, write this down. Again, for those of you who have techno tutor, definitely put it in, because that's how I was actually able to understand this and live this. And this is the phrase: integrity equals self-directive principle. Integrity equals self-directive principle.
And if you're listening, pull out your phone, make a note in your phone. If you don't have a phone of things to put into your techno tutor, you should definitely have that. It doesn't have to be elaborate, it doesn't have to be crazy, but just have a list where you can program yourself with this point. So Mitch, say that one more time.
It's like a way to capture things. It's integrity equals self-directive principle. And what I mean by that is that's real integrity, is the ability to direct yourself. Because if you're just going at the whim of how you feel and what's convenient and all sorts of shitty rules you've constructed for yourself based on your pre-programming, you're just going to go along the way and live your life just like abusing yourself, abusing other people, not even really seeing it. But real integrity, like really coming into wholeness first with yourself and then with everything here, that integrity, that can only come from you directing yourself. Like, I don't think people realize the extent to which we are enslaved. This idea of free will and this idea of choice, it's like, do you realize that what you think is choice? They've done studies on this now in psychology. This was a while ago. I remember hearing about this, where they could predict, even before the person consciously made the decision, they could predict which decision they were going to make. They did all these studies on this in the field of like cognitive sciences and behavioral sciences. They would look at this of when people thought they had free will to choose between options of like right or left, or they could choose like this picture or that picture, which one they like more. It was actually a unconscious process of which choice they made. It was a microsecond beforehand, before they were consciously aware of their decision. They had already made the decision in their body. Here's why that's significant. Because right now you think you have free will. You think you're able to just choose and I'm just going through my life. And some of you are probably going to turn the audio off just from hearing this because it's going to trigger you so much. Guess what? You're a organic robot that has been programmed to be a slave. That's why you want to turn off the audio. But for those of you who can really hear this and you're able to direct yourself through this, listen to this because it's actually your ticket to freedom. Is first we have to accept the fact that we are programmed. That's just how reality is set up for a variety of reasons. And we are programmable beings in a programmable reality. So let's look at the fact that, okay, I've been programmed. That's why I feel these types of ways. That's why I make decisions that I make. But nonetheless, I can take a breath. And in the moment, as who I am, I can direct myself to the best possible outcome to the best of my ability. And does it mean that you're going to be perfect every single time and always verifiably make the absolute best decision every single time? Right away, no. You might fail. But part of this process and part of the reason that Asif and I are so consistent and we have so many groups and so much support is because over time, you'll learn to trust yourself. And then over time, you'll realize, hey, even if I mess up, as long as I'm doing my best, I can keep coming back to the process and I can get better and better until you're at the point like Asif and I are at, as well as many others who are listening to this, where you can genuinely 100% say, I trust myself to do what's best. Not I trust my feelings. It's I trust myself to direct myself in each moment beyond my pre-programming so I can actually create the best outcome. And that in turn is going to go back into reality and influence everything so that we can actually create a better outcome for every single person.
Right. Never, ever underestimate the degree to which you've been programmed to be fucked. Never underestimate the degree to which you have been programmed to be a slave. Okay. What we implore all of you to start doing is to become obsessed, to become hyper aware of everywhere where you follow your feelings and your emotions.
And everywhere where you look for an excuse instead of figuring it out.
Right. Exactly. And you'll start seeing this in these little ways because like Mitch was saying, when you're making a decision, the conclusion is already drawn. And then you go through this thinking process, which you think is you figuring out what would make most sense or some bullshit. But in reality, what's happening is you've already made a decision unconsciously. And now, based off whatever your fears are, whatever you still have beliefs about how things work and all this stuff, that will determine, you'll make your little pros and cons list, right? In your mind. You just do a pros and cons. And naturally, if you're afraid to talk to people, the cons are always going to be greater than the pros of going to the networking event because you don't want to go. You've already made that decision, right? Oh, it's too late, it's too far, whatever, right? The Uber's going to cost too much, whatever it is. Right? Exactly.
I'll
right?
feel different next week.
Exactly. I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the next one for sure. Even though I decided beforehand that I was going to go to this one. If, for example, you're not sure if you can go because of a scheduling issue or something of that nature, decide that beforehand. Just make it clear to yourself, hey, this is going to be a decision that I make at this time when I have this data, but right now I don't know. So I'm not going to make a commitment. My commitment is I'll make a decision that I find. That is, even that, it's superior to making a decision and then going based off how you feel and changing it, okay? So what we're imploring you to do is take that opportunity today, at this moment, and become obsessed, hyper aware of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and how they are running you, how you are choosing at an unconscious level to go with your feelings and emotions. So let's talk about a couple of the things that lead people to be apathetic, or, another word for apathy is lazy. A lot of people talk about, I'm a lazy person. You ever hear that, Mitch? I'm kind of a lazy person.
Oh
You ever
yeah,
hear
of
that?
course. Like people have
What do
just identified with it as who they are.
right, exactly. What do you see as some of the causes of that?
A few main ones that jump out right away is one, having a pattern of breaking agreements or breaking your word. Like, you've since a child probably said stuff like, "Oh, hey, I'll call you later," and then you don't call them. Or like, "Hey, yeah, I'll be here, or I'll do that, or let's get together," and then you just don't do it. And because of that, you're degrading and you're corrupting one, your word. So now when you say, "Hey, I'm going to do something," deep down you don't actually follow through with what you say you're going to do. That right there, red fucking flag. Ding, ding, ding. If you're doing that, I guarantee you're not at the level that you want to be at or that you should be at. Fuck the level you want to be at. There's a level that you should be at. Okay.
Right.
Which is you should be on these calls on the Young Billionaires Club, listening to this, talking with us, networking and understanding how do we actually sort out reality. Because if you have the luxury to listen to this right now, if you have the luxury of having a bank account, Wi-Fi, internet, a phone, you have the duty to stand up in this world and change things. Like, why the fuck should you be given the luxury of having a good life if you're not going to actually do something with it? Like, really look at that. So here's another reason why someone would be apathetic and lazy is because they just want to feel secure and comfortable because they probably had a lot of insecurity in their life, probably going back to childhood. Like our parents, for better or for worse, probably didn't support us effectively. In fact, I know they didn't support us effectively. The only parents, I know a handful of parents that are actually doing this right. And thankfully, like Asif, you and I both having kids with our wives, and there's more people becoming aware of this. But most people as a child, they were like taught to just cry it out. Or like you could cry and be sad, and your dad might say, "Hey, toughen up." Or your mom wasn't always there. Maybe she had to work. Maybe you're at a daycare. You got dropped off. Whatever. That stuff is hardwired into us, and so we don't feel good when we experience conflict or pain. And because of that desire to just feel good and nurtured and loved and safe, because we like that, we like to stay in our comfort zone. And we think that our comfort zone is actually, I'll just be lazy. I'll just hang out here. But that's really apathy. Because in reality, your real comfort zone, the actual comfort, should be found in going beyond your programming. Because then you
Right.
can be comfortable, I say that in air quotes, with the fact of knowing, hey, as long as I keep doing this and I keep doing the right things, I keep connecting with people, I keep trusting myself, we keep building, then I can be comfortable in understanding, oh, we're going to actually get the result. Cool. That's great. Let's keep going. But in reality, we get it all twisted. Yeah. What do you see as?
Right. This is massive, man. Like the number one reason that you become lazy, that you become apathetic is because of fear. That's the word, right? And Mitch, you described it perfectly about why we get so comfortable being inside of our comfort zone versus billionaires. Like a billionaire level of thinking is you only feel comfortable when you're constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, or your comfort zone makes you uncomfortable. You're like, fuck, I've been comfortable for too long, right? There's something very, very important to note, because for a lot of guys, you will use your ego and justify why you're apathetic, justify why you're lazy. It's like a cool thing to do, to not care. It's cool, right? People who care, in reality, you're afraid, okay? And there's many different reasons why you might be afraid. One of them is, for example, social anxiety. You're afraid of social rejection, right? You're afraid of people not liking you and different things like that, okay? Another big one, especially if you're potentially a salesperson or you're supporting people or anything of that nature, you're afraid to connect with people emotionally. Okay, and where that would come from is you haven't dug down into your sadness, your depression, your sad shit that's inside of you. So you're not willing to do that for another to support them to make a stronger decision, so that they're not being guided by their emotions, because you're still being guided by your emotions. Okay, being apathetic is giving into your emotions. Being lazy is giving into your emotions, and you have to pay close attention to when, for example, myself, Mitch, we work with a group of people, right? So if we're sharing a perspective or some advice or something that you can use to upgrade your business or to upgrade your relationships, okay? Even in the Young Billionaires Club, if you guys aren't part of that group yet, there's a link in the description below of wherever you're watching this video to join the Discord group for the Young Billionaires Club. And we have a call every Sunday. And on those calls, we go deep, okay? We go very specifically deep into relationships, into business, into success, and what all the caveats and the nuances of success look like, okay? And now, if we suggest something on one of those calls and you feel, nah, that ain't me, that's not for me, or anything other than, oh, that makes sense, I'm gonna do it, there's apathy in there. You are not taking responsibility for your program. I'm not saying to just do whatever we say. I'm saying consider, look at it for yourself. And if there's resistance to even doing that properly, effectively, to looking at why we're saying something, and look at it, if you were to apply that in your life, what would that look like? And then if it makes sense to you going and doing it, if you're not doing that process consistently, one, either you didn't know you were supposed to do that because you weren't programmed to be a billionaire, which is fine, right? So now you're aware. Okay, when you're hearing something, look at it for yourself and decide, is that valuable to implement into my life? And if so, then do it, right? And then two, if you're not doing that, it's because you're giving into apathy, okay? There's a fear, there's some kind of identity issue of that's not who I am, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing to consider, okay? When you're going into a fear of failure, a fear of looking stupid, a fear of anything of that nature, know this, know, like we were talking about at the beginning, you were not programmed to be there. You were programmed to be a slave. You're programmed to be a loser. So was I, and so was Mitchell. This is to face the reality so we can start moving forward and trend. We were not programmed to be billionaires. We're programmed to be losers. We're programmed to be slaves. So here's the point, okay? If you are going to go out and fail, if that's what you're afraid of, and that's what's making you apathetic, because you're like, what's the point? I'm going to fuck it up anyways. Well, here's the point. When you go out and you give a sales presentation, or you go talk to a girl, or you go do whatever it is that you think you're going to fail at, you are pre-programmed with that failure. Consider this, guys. This is why you should never judge yourself for making a mistake. Okay, you should judge yourself if you don't learn from it, right? And then learn from that. But this is why you shouldn't judge yourself for making a mistake, because that mistake, whatever you end up doing that results in it not being the best outcome that you wanted, like whatever you do that ends up being a mistake, that thing that you did was already programmed inside of you. That's what came natural to you. That's what you were programmed with. Okay, so the thing to understand is, this is why you shouldn't judge yourself for mistakes, because it's actually something to make peace with. It's what you've been programmed as today, right now. You've been programmed as a slave, period. Okay, do not underestimate that. And when you live from that starting point and being like, how do I program myself to be a billionaire? You start becoming a little more objective about when you make mistakes. You start when you experience that apathy or that desire to break the agreement that you said you're going to do, you start looking at, well, what is it that I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that this is going to happen, or this is not going to happen. Okay, then you can start looking at, okay, interesting, I have to go look at that now. For those of you who have TechnoTutor, work through those little points that come up inside of you, because this is the process of becoming a billionaire. And this is one more point I want to make before I pass it back to Mitch to wrap it up. So just to be clear, know that you were pre-programmed with the mistakes that you end up expressing, okay? Make peace with that. And then all you have to do is being able, this is a whole nother topic, but being able to push through the emotion of facing failure, of not getting the result you want, okay? But here's the point to consider. If you do what we're suggesting, if you become hyper aware of everywhere where you're participating in apathy and emotions and thoughts and feelings, and like Mitch said, we have a whole history of breaking our agreements, saying we're going to do something and not doing it. right? Okay, I'll see you guys at soccer practice next week. And then you don't show up and you don't tell anybody. You just don't feel like it that day. You're tired, you sleep in, whatever. Okay, we have this whole history of breaking agreements. Okay, consider the word, this is a concept of becoming hyper aware of everywhere where you're participating in your feelings and emotions and starting to transcend that step by step. Okay, this is called living self-perfection. Okay, living self-perfection. Everybody thinks of the word perfection as some ideal, okay, the adjective, you know, the most ideal situation possible. And then they think perfection is not possible, all this bullshit, okay? Here's what the noun perfection is, okay? If you're living perfection, if you go, you know what? The best thing you can do, whether you do it after I say it or before I say it, is go look up the definition to perfection. Go look at this for yourself. This is what a billionaire would do. They wouldn't just take someone's word for it. They would, if it's something that they can verify for themselves and it makes sense to practically, they don't have to spend, you know, a whole day going to verify. It's just a Google search away. Look up the definition to the word perfection and make sure you hit more translations, definitions, and origins on Google or whatever you're looking at. And make sure you look at all the definitions. You will see that perfection is the process. The process. It's not a destination. It is not a static image of the ideal. It is the process of becoming as faultless as possible. It's the process of becoming faultless or as faultless as possible. So just consider this, okay? Two things there, okay? One of them is you can't say perfection is impossible because in the definition of perfection, it's saying as faultless as possible. So by definition, perfection is possible. Okay, and if you don't believe that, that's more of a reflection of your inability to change. That's more of a reflection of your self-trust. You don't believe you can change. You don't think you can be perfect, right? And we're gonna talk lots about perfection in the future. Okay, but that's the first point. Know that it's possible. Okay, but I'm going to be very emphatic about the process point because this is the thing that everybody misses. That perfection is the process of becoming as faultless as possible. This is living perfection. If you actually take what we're sharing with you guys and you start living it, you start being much more considerate of where you're following your emotions, where you're following your thoughts and transcending it and exercising your integrity, which is your self-directive principle. To overcome your feelings, to overcome your thoughts, to overcome the energies that come up that keep you from following through on your agreements. That is perfection. That is the process of removing your faults and becoming as faultless as possible. Okay, so just really wanted to bolster that point for you to really understand what does it look like to live self-perfection and how that relates to being a billionaire is overcoming in each moment. Being successful in a moment would be living perfection, which is you see a fault inside of you, something that's going to result in you breaking your agreement, of being apathetic, being lazy, whatever you want to call it, and you make that self-willed decision and choice to overcome that. That is called perfection.
Well said. So we designed these audios so that you can come back to these multiple times. There's so much information in here that right now you can hear it at this point in time, right on day one when you listen to this. But a week from now or 2 weeks from now, come back to this, listen again, and notice, how are you changing? Or how are you not changing? So it's a good reference point. And something that I found really interesting the other day was I'm rereading a biography of Sam Walton, the guy who created Walmart. And just looking at in his journey of building this now global empire of Walmart stores, it just really struck me when he was talking about in year 3 of Walmart, like the first couple years, they were kind of stagnant and struggling. And then in year 3, in like the first 5 years too, they had like some issues with like a tornado came through and just set them all back, right? But it really struck me when they said, yeah, in the 3rd year, a big change happened. And here's why that's important. How many of you have really started to take your life seriously maybe in the last 6 months, maybe last year, maybe last month, and you're expecting this big breakthrough already. Maybe you're 1 year into this process, right? Maybe you met me and Asif a year ago at a gin event or something like that. And you're 1 year in and you're like, why don't I have millions in my bank account yet? Remember we talked about patient urgency? Like, do you have the patience of a Sam Walton to, after 3 years, finally start having some breakthroughs? I forget the exact number of how long it took them to even hit 1 billion in revenue. And it was a while. Like, I believe over 10 years. We're so brainwashed to have instant gratification. It's messed up. And so then it's another way that we have apathy. So we're like, oh, I just see all these people and Elon Musk is doing this and Jeff Bezos is doing this. And I'm just over here, still living in my 1-bedroom apartment. It's like, it takes freaking time. But here's the point is today you have a wonderful opportunity in this moment, right? After this audio is over. You could put in your calendar that today is the day that everything changed. Because today is the day that you can make that decision to start that process of perfection. Or maybe you're already on your way, but you just want to set a reminder to yourself. So again, I want to bring it back to that one point of you have 2 paths forward right now. One path is where you keep giving into your emotions and your feelings and your apathy and your lack of care and all that stuff. And that's one way forward. And that is a sad life. Or you can choose the path of, hey, I am going to do my best every single day. And I know there are days where I will make mistakes, but I will learn from the mistakes and I'll actually get better from it, right? Anti-fragility, which will probably be its own call in itself that will do. And that is what you can now see every day forward. So you can use today, mark it in your calendar as the day that everything changed. Because now, moving forward, this is where the momentum begins to really build, or it continues to build, depending on what you've been doing. But this is your chance where you get to see for yourself who you really are. Because if you're the kind of person that after this, you end up going and you're just fucking off, that shows you who you really are. But if you're the kind of person that says, you know what, today I'm going to do my best. And tomorrow I'm going to do my best. And the next day I'm going to do my best. And then Sunday I'll get on the Young Billionaires Club call. And I'll reach out to Asif or I'll reach out to Mitch. And I'm going to apply myself. You have a network of support here. Again, that's what all billionaires have as well. They have a group. And so you got to plug into that group. So this is your invitation. First, to make that decision for yourself of where am I going to go and where am I going to end up? And I'm going to end up at the top. And then the next step is actually living that. And so you can build that support into your life. And you do that by 1, making sure you're in the Discord, 2, participate in the Discord and come on the calls on Sundays. You can find that information in there. Set a reminder for yourself too, right? Because this is a perfect chance where you can say, hey, I'm going to be on that call. Sunday rolls around, you hit snooze and you wake up late. It's like, or you could say, hey, Sunday, I'm going to be on that call. And then you do come on that call, right? That's your opportunity to prove that you have integrity. And then as you do this, right, here's the one other piece is Asif and I make these calls so that you can study this material, you can look at it, you can apply it, you can listen to it again and again. And then here's the point though, is we got to actually connect. So for those of you who want to look at the fine tuning of how do you do this, or maybe you had some resistance come up, or maybe you had some situation that you feel like maybe we didn't cover, reach out. And so in this video, in the description, there's going to be a link so you can message Asif directly or message myself directly. Choose whichever you want to reach out to, and then reach out because we can find a way to support you, whether it be just a messenger, or we get on a call, maybe we send you some other training. We're here to create the new 1% if you listen to our other videos. And the only way to do that is to find the other people that are willing to do that. And so this is your invitation and this is your chance to see, will you have the integrity to follow through or are you going to give in to your emotions? The choice is yours after all. So Asif, any closing lines?
All I can say is this specific audios that Mitch and I are doing are very, very intentional. And we try to be as specific as possible, but also giving you the context around why we're saying what we're saying. And this particular point of reaching out one-on-one is always very significant because that's where the real breakthroughs happen. That's where the magic happens, if you will. I know me and Mitch have plenty of one-on-one calls, and we also have a lot of group calls together, right? We're participants, we're leading them, whatever the case may be. But it's when we have that one-on-one time together, even just for each other, that we can really support each other to the next level. And when we support other people, the one-on-one is where the magic happens, because we can speak to you directly and we can see whatever's coming up for you. And it can be really real time, right? When you're on the phone with somebody, you're talking to somebody, you're getting their feedback in real time. Well, we can't get your feedback, right? This is for a lot of people. Now, at the end of the day, we're only looking for the new 1%. We're looking for the 1% of people who hear this invitation, and they actually take advantage of it. Those are the people that we're looking for anyways. So if that's not you, you've already qualified yourself. You're not going to talk to us, right? But for those of you who are, we're willing and ready to take you to whatever the next step is for you. Because at the end of the day, it's like, this is what somebody did for me. This is what like we supported Mitch with, is like, okay, Mitch was going through stuff in his life a couple of years ago. Now he's somebody that is my best friend that I do business with. That's why we want to support every one of you, so that we can actually be friends with the starting point of the reason we're friends is because we have the same purpose, because you're competent, you're sharp, you have what you want in your life, and you're still growing. That's why we want to support you, so we can do business together later, because that is what that's living out the purpose of getting into. So other than that, for those of you who one more thing. Me and Mitch, this is something that we only started recently. So if you know other people who are part of the Young Billionaires Club, send them a link. Send them a link to this audio, because then you've listened to it. And I mean, if you've listened this far, the assumption will be that you've gotten some value out of it. If you have, if that is the case, if you're hearing this right now, choose some of your friends, just 3 of them, send them this link, because they might not even know in the Young Billionaires Club that we're doing this. Okay. And the second thing is, for those of you who know people who are not in the Young Billionaires Club, who might hear this and be like, damn, like this is really valuable stuff. This is stuff that people aren't really talking about. Share this with them too. Because the value that we can bring to other people is when we receive value. This is what me and Mitch are doing. And that's why we're suggesting you do the same. When you receive value, do your best to give that value. That's other than that, that's everything. Thank you guys for being here and taking this information and applying it into your life, because that's the biggest thing that me and Mitch want to see.
Yeah, 100%. So go apply and stay tuned for more videos, and go share this with people and take your next step. All right, everyone. We'll see you in the next video.